MSW Media. Thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring our show. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting cleanup20 to 64,000.
So yeah, now it's cleanup on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be cleanup on aisle 45.
Welcome to episode 204 of Cleanup on Aisle 45, the third episode starring Mr. Harry Dunn. Ooh. It's Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Harry Dunn. We have so much to cover in today's show, including New York Attorney Leticia James refusing to drop the Trump fraud appeal, and District Court Attorney Alvin Bragg refusing to drop the 34 felony count conviction against Donald Trump. That starts, That's great. Refusing. Let's start with the word refuse. I like it.
Yeah, like F you, buddy. And I love how Alvin Bragg put it in his initial letter. We'll get to the full brief in a little bit, but he was like, look, I understand and respect the Constitution that says, the part of the Constitution that says we can't prosecute a sitting president because he has to be able to do his job unfettered by that kind of thing. But I also respect the jury verdict and the rule of law, and we can't just throw it out. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And by the way, nice new microphone you got there, sir.
Woo! Yeah, check it out. I'm official now. Nice equipment and everything. Let's rock.
So thanks to everybody. We had, I think, 2 shows maybe there that where we were in transition and didn't quite have a microphone figured out yet. But now we're all up to date. So everybody can come back, start listening. We'll get thousands of new listeners now because of this microphone.
That's right. Let's do it.
I feel it in my bones. And we're going to get a ton of new patrons too. And speaking of new patrons, I've got a couple to thank. Jennifer M., Jilly, and the alcohol and gambling ads are kind of a big bummer. And I agree with you. The alcohol and gambling ads are kind of a big bummer. We've actually tried to ban those ads, but they sneak through. There's this whole industry trickery thing that's going on with podcast. I could do a whole expose on podcast advertising because, for example, I wanted to get rid of the Black Rifle Coffee Company as an advertiser because they're Nazis. So I ban their URL, and then they go and buy random URLs and hide them to get them through the advertising blocks.
They circumvent the traditional methods of getting through.
Yep. And so when I try to ban gambling ads and block them, sometimes they'll call themselves like Happy Summer something that has nothing to do with gambling, and they'll sneak by. So we're doing our best. It's like whack-a-mole over here. But we are doing our best. And you're a patron now, so you don't have to listen to any ads. So woohoo.
Woohoo.
All right. We also have updated charges for the cheese. Ken Cheseboro, we're going to talk about today. In Wisconsin, of all places, the home of the cheese.
The cheese, absolutely.
As he's simultaneously laughed out of court in Fulton County by Judge McAfee. And of course, we'll have an update on Rudy's mountain of legal trouble.
Rudy.
I think we'll play the specials right before the D block every episode, right? Like a little killer there. All right, Harry, let's talk about the more recent comings and goings of the presidential administrations.
Well, first, Chris Wray. What you got? He resigns. Cowardice? What you think? Absolutely.
Dude, obeying in advance. You should hear on the latest episode of the Jack podcast, Andy, who spent his life, dedicated his career to the FBI, started as a field agent, came in at the bottom rung, worked his all the way up to deputy director. He was acting director for a minute, when Comey got fired.
Yeah.
And he was listening to me read Chris Wray's statement on his resignation.
Was it like nails on a chalkboard for him?
Yeah, because Chris Wray is all, we stand for integrity and we fight and we do the work and the work must continue. And he's like, but you're quitting.
Yeah.
And he was like, if he stood up there and said, the work continues, I continue the work with you, I'm here with you, I'm not going anywhere, they would have carried him out on their shoulders, Andy said.
Yeah.
But here he is capitulating. And there was a brief article put out by some couple of right-wing guys who were like, oh, it's strategery. It's, he's going to make it hard for him to put Kash Patel in, but they're completely wrong. I spoke to Steve Vladeck, who's a law professor.
Yeah.
And Steve's like, yeah, that's just simply wrong. He writes about the two parts of the law, but he forgets the third part where you can just put a first assistant in who's been there for 90 days. And this actually makes it easier for Donald Trump to circumvent the Reform Act of the Vacancies Reform Act, because it says somebody has to die or be incapacitated in order for you to fill this with somebody.
So by him stepping down, he doesn't have to wait for him to die or become incapacitated.
Right. And firing someone isn't something that's one of those things. So it would be something you could sue against. You could sue based on, hey, the Federal Vacancies Reform Act says they have to die or retire, and you fired. And that's not part of this. It would have narrowed his path to be able to shove Kash Patel in there.
Should have made it like a child having a temper tantrum, just falling down in the middle of the store and making your parents have to pick you up and carry you out the store. That's how Chris Wray should have gone out, saying, like, instead of just saying, nope, I'm going, I'll leave peacefully. Nah, I'm very disappointed with the way that unfolded.
Yeah, no, me too. And it's just it's just really frustrating to see people just kind of roll over and give up,
Definitely. But also, we got some other news. Devin Nunes. Well, everybody remember Nunes. He will serve as chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board.
The Intelligence Advisory Board.
Now, let's talk about, remember, Nunes, he was a member of the House for about 2 decades before suddenly resigning from Congress in January 2020 to take up his current position as CEO of Trump's Truth Social platform.
2022. It's January 2022. Yeah.
What I said? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm out. I'm going to be the CEO of some other illegal shit. That's basically
illegal. That's not even doing well. If you just like Truth Social, I haven't even looked at it recently, but just the plummeting of it and just, just another.
Well, it was a pump and dump scheme, right? The whole thing was a stock sham. But yeah, it lost quite a bit of money, but Trump didn't. So he was also, Trump said that Nunes will actually continue his job as CEO of True Social. While he's the intelligence advisor. That's a pretty crazy.
But in 2017, he recused himself from the committee's investigation into Russia interference in the 2016 election because of an investigation by the Office of Congressional Ethics into allegations that he may have leaked classified information. Like, you can't make this stuff up.
So a classified information leaker is going to be your intelligence advisor.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, since the creation of it in 1956, the role of the PIAB, Intelligence Advisory Board, their role is to provide the president with an independent source of advice on the effectiveness with which the intelligence community is meeting the nation's intelligence needs and the vigor and insight with which the community plans for the future.
So what you're telling me is Devin Nunes is going to be in charge of making sure Tulsi Gabbard does a good job.
This is funny, but it's not. This is national
we laugh
security.
So we don't cry.
Yeah,
we laugh so we don't
keep
cry.
From crying.
Yeah.
And the perfect person for this, Devin Nunes.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to take any more midnight Uber rides with classified info for the White House.
This happened, you all. This happened, you all, in an Uber. So.
Yep. You remember.
I definitely do. I was at the Capitol when Nunes was there. And that definitely, he would walk in, people like, that's him. That's the guy.
Is he just like a laughing stock?
He is a laughing stock.
Because I imagine there's a handful of senators and
even on his own side,
congressmen that are
even on his own side, but
like Ted Cruz. Everybody hates Ted Cruz,
but he fits right in the Trump world.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
totally.
fits right in. So, and also, 3 sources familiar with the deliberations tell CBS News that George Glass is likely to be President-elect Trump's pick for U.S. ambassador to Japan.
Well, yeah, okay, but it says here that George Glass served as ambassador to Portugal during the first Trump administration, and prior to that, he worked in investment banking and real estate. But, Harry, I don't think he's a real person.
No?
But I do have a boyfriend.
Oh, you do?
He's one of the nicest boys in the school, and he thinks I'm super cool.
Oh, that's wonderful, Jan. What's his name?
His name is George.
George what?
George Glass. George Glass.
The imaginary boyfriend. I do. It's George.
It's George Glass.
George Glass.
She always says it that way.
George Glass. She doesn't say George. It's George Glass. It's
George
name.
George Glass.
George Glass. That is too funny.
So there you go, ambassador to Japan. But I gave you a little background on him there, and of course, this blows my mind, Harry. Tom Barrack has been given an ambassadorship to Turkey. And Katie Fang broke this news, or she put it out on
We love
Blue
Katie.
Sky.
Katie's amazing, by the way.
And she's amazing. And she actually did you see her recent interview with Connie Chung? It's brilliant.
I would
check it out on Peacock.
Bookmarking it now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, Katie Fang actually tagged me on Blue Sky with this news, me specifically, because she knows how closely we followed the Foreign Agents Registration Act cases against Tom Barrack, and when he was the co-chair of Trump's inaugural the first time around.
Yeah.
The one where $50 million went missing.
Yeah.
And multiple Russians bought tickets through strawmans to donate money to pay Trump off. So Tom Barrack he was indicted for failing to register as a foreign agent against the UAE, or excuse me, a foreign agent for the UAE. United Arab Emirates. He was acquitted in that case. Fair is very hard to prove. But this guy is shady. He's got deals with China. Like, they paid, like, it's not good. And so here, Turkey is actually a pretty key ambassadorship. Relations with Turkey are super important.
Yeah.
But that's going to be Tom Barrack. So, yikes.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not any good news. Although I think I just read on Twitter, somebody sent me a tweet from Steve Contorno. And Steve Contorno is a senior reporter for CNN. And he reports that Florida Rep. Jared Moskowitz, Democrat Jared Moskowitz, you know, the one who Comer called a Smurf and was
Smurf
getting into it with Comer. He's actually a top contender to lead FEMA in the Trump administration.
Is it?
Moskowitz previously served as the director of emergency management for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, where he helped lead the state's COVID response. So Trump's actually considering a Democrat, Jared Moskowitz, and he's the top contender for FEMA. That's
interesting, head-scratchingly interesting, but it's also good too, because as we know, FEMA been under a lot of scrutiny, fairly or unfairly, with the hurricane devastation. A lot of it was misinformation with the hurricanes that came through North Carolina and the coast leading up to the election, and a lot of misinformation was out there.
Well, I think my concern here, though, is like if he guts FEMA or defunds it or steals all the money from FEMA, then he'll be able to blame a Democrat for failures to respond appropriately to certain disasters. But maybe he won't. I don't know. At least we would have somebody in FEMA who
knows what they're
decide where to go and who to help based on who voted for him.
Sure.
But I mean, Trump could always tell him, don't help California wildfires or whatever. But, we'll see. Again, he hasn't accepted. It hasn't even been announced. It's just being reported on sourcing that he's a top contender, and we'll keep you posted, obviously.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, head scratching for sure. All right, we got more to go over. We're going to talk about the cheese. We have a whole block for the cheese. Do you like that?
A block of cheese?
We got a block of cheese coming up right after this break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Did you know your family's personal information is probably already on data broker sites on the internet? These sites collect and sell details like your home address, phone numbers, emails, and more, exposing you to scammers or worse. That's why I gifted a Delete Me subscription to a close loved one. Delete Me works tirelessly to remove their details, ensuring they're protected from online threats. It's a gift that truly matters and offers long-lasting peace of mind. With so much personal data floating around the internet, staying safe can feel impossible. As someone who shares their opinions online, I've experienced those risks firsthand, unwanted emails, calls, and harassment. And that's why I use Delete Me, a service that removes my personal information from data broker sites, keeping my safety and security a top priority. Delete Me works to safeguard your privacy by deleting your personal information from hundreds of data broker websites. These platforms gather, they scrape the internet for your data, and then they sell it, often without you knowing it. Delete Me handles the hard work for you. They monitor and remove your details regularly to ensure that your family's information stays secure. And in today's digital world where privacy can feel out of reach, Delete Me offers real, effective protection. It's a step everyone should take to protect themselves and their loved ones. So this holiday season, give your loved ones the gift of privacy and peace of mind with Delete Me. Now at a special discount for listeners, today get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting CLEANUP20 to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text CLEANUP20 to 64,000. Again, that's CLEANUP20 to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply.
Welcome back. We have more new patrons to thank, including Robin Grigoriev, forgive me on the pronunciation, Matthew Rock, and our friend Rose.
Oh, thank you all so very much. And we're going to see some, when you guys hear this Wednesday, but we record Monday. And tonight we're actually going to meet some of our patrons at a gala.
I can't wait. I'm excited.
Drinks and food are on me. They're on the show. They're on MSW Media. And you're going to be there, Harry. And we're going to have Pete. We're going to have Harry and Pete in the same room.
I can't wait. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun.
Andy will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so if you're a patron, not only do you get these episodes early, you get them ad-free, so you don't have to worry about the gambling and alcohol ads.
Yeah, this is true.
And the ad whack-a-mole that we have to play. But you also get invites to our galas. We usually have a couple a year, and pre-sale tickets for live shows. And, Harry, you and I are going to set
our
up
bonus episode too.
Yep. The second episode every week. It's like a 20-minute trash talking session.
It's fun. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
You get all that stuff. You just sign up going to patreon.com/aisle45pod. That's AISLE 45POD. So what do we got on the cheese?
Our next segment is all about the cheese. Munster, Gouda, cheddar.
Havarti is my favorite.
Havarti cheese. Ken Cheseboro. From Alice Herman at The Guardian, Kenneth Cheseboro, Michael Roman, and James Troupis hit with 10 more charges over scheme to overturn the 2020 election.
I love this for them.
This is great. Isn't that great news? Wisconsin's Justice Department filed 10 additional charges on Tuesday against 3 Donald Trump allies who spearheaded the fake electors scheme to help the president-elect in his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The 3 men, Kenneth Cheseboro, Michael Roman, and James Troupis, already face felony forgery charges in June for their role in the plot. The additional charges include conspiracy to commit a crime and numerous counts of fraud. In Wisconsin, the individual false electors have faced civil penalties and agreed to never serve as electors while Trump is on the ballot, and to issue a public statement acknowledging that their votes had been cast in an attempt to disrupt Joe Biden's 2020 victory.
Man, 10 more charges.
10
Republicans,
more charges.
Yeah, that's so cool. Justice, I love justice. Why they
Isn't
don't?
it great?
Why they don't indict Trump? I don't understand. But the Republicans submitted false slates of electors in 7 swing states, as we know, but only some have faced civil and criminal penalties. Unlike in Michigan, Georgia, and Arizona, where electors were charged with crimes for participating in the fake elector scheme, Wisconsin's false electors have not faced criminal charges. Instead, the state has hit the architects of the scheme with the most serious penalties. According to the complaint, remember when you were like, yeah, you got to get the murderer, but you also got to get the hitman.
Get the hitman.
Or get the guy who sent the hitman.
Hit the hitman, yeah.
According to the complaint and documents released previously in civil court, Cheseboro led the effort, circulating a memo titled The Real Deadline for Settling a State's Electoral Votes. which made the case for Trump's electors to submit false electoral certificates despite the fact that Trump didn't win the election. The complaint lays out how Cheseboro and Troupis, both attorneys, coordinated with Mike Roman, a real peach of a guy, by the way, and a Trump aide, to establish the plot in states across the country. It notes that while in some states the false electors submitted qualifying language in their certificates, you remember New Mexico and Pennsylvania did this, to indicate that they had submitted their names just in case Trump was ultimately declared the winner of the election. Wisconsin's electors included no such language. It was just New Mexico and Pennsylvania that did. They were like, we aren't saying we're the duly sworn electors. We're saying we will be if Trump somehow wins.
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of like we're not going to break the law yet.
Because they knew it was illegal.
Illegal. Exactly. So Troupis, Roman, and Cheseboro have faced prosecution for their involvement in the 2020 false elector schemes in other states, including Arizona and Georgia, where Cheseboro pled guilty to conspiracy to commit filing false documents. Troupis continued to serve on a Wisconsin judicial ethics panel. That guy, that's exactly who you want sitting on an ethics panel.
Following, it's like putting Nunes in charge of intelligence.
The Intelligence Committee. Up is down, down is up. He served on a Wisconsin judicial ethics panel following the false elector episode and was only suspended from his role in June when he was first charged with felony forgery in connection with the plot.
Yeah, so it's funny you bring up that he's charged in other states, including Arizona and Georgia, because this is... I'm going to say Cheseboro's the winner of the Bench Slap of the Week award.
This is good.
Because you'll recall down in Georgia, he filed a motion to invalidate his guilty plea. Well, here's what Judge McAfee has to say about it. Judge McAfee says, almost 14 months ago, the defendant pled guilty to count 15 of the indictment pursuant to the First Offender Act. As negotiated, the state contemporaneously dismissed the other 6 felony counts remaining against him. The undersigned subsequently quashed count 15. The undersigned is the judge. So Judge McAfee subsequently quashed count 15 as violative of the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution to the extent that it charges 2 co-defendants. Now, defendant Cheseboro seeks to invalidate his plea, labeling it constitutionally void on similar grounds, and its continued imposition of violation of due process. Procedurally defective in more ways than one, this motion is dismissed. At the outset, the undersigned, the judge, concludes that the defendant's invoked remedy is entirely inapt. True, a plea in bar challenges the validity of an indictment, but the defendant has already submitted a plea in response to the indictment, one of guilt. Defendant's sole citation in support of his contention that a plea in bar is a post-conviction remedy rather than a form of a pretrial challenge does not suggest otherwise, analyzing a plea in bar targeting 2 counts reactivated after with a withdrawn guilty plea. And he also see the dictionary. He cites Black's Law Dictionary saying defining a special plea in bar as one that rather than addressing the merits and denying the facts alleged sets up some extrinsic facts showing why a criminal defendant cannot be tried for the offense charged. And that's Patterson v. State, he's quoting here, where he says, where the time for filing a direct appeal for the criminal conviction or motion for a new trial has expired, a defendant attacking his underlying conviction is limited to the traditionally recognized proceedings of an extraordinary motion for a new trial, a motion to withdraw his guilty plea, a motion in arrest of judgment, or a petition of habeas corpus. The judge says, nor can this be considered a valid motion in arrest of judgment. Such a motion challenges any non-amendable fact appearing on the face of the record to take the form of a general demur or raise constitutional challenges. But it provides no relief here for 2 reasons, he says. He says, first, the judge, the undersigned, believes no judgment has been rendered. That's a prerequisite to get this thrown out against the defendant. There's been no judgment against the defendant because this is under the First Offender Act. And under the First Offender Act, a defendant is sentenced before an adjudication of guilt and without entering a judgment of guilt. So you can't do this plea in bar thing because there's been no judgment rendered against you because you took the First Offender Act plea deal so that you wouldn't have to go to jail.
The judge didn't even have to weigh in on this. You pled guilty. Okay. That's what you want to do?
Yeah. And a prerequisite of doing that against the defendant, you can't do this before an adjudication of guilt. The imposition of the first offender sentence does not immediately constitute a conviction. So therefore, there can be no motion in arrest of judgment here because there's no judgment here.
Zero.
So you are doubly stupid. He doesn't say that. I say that.
Well, he said that in Law Talk.
Yeah, he did. He did it like between the lines here. In more ways, you are defective in more ways than one. Setting that aside, the judge said, a motion in arrest of judgment must be filed during the term when the judgment was entered. If untimely filed, the trial court lacks any jurisdiction and the motion has to be dismissed anyway. So,
yeah,
you are wrong 12 ways, dude.
Well, he's not finished. The judge goes on to say, finally, a trial court may vacate a void sentence at any time. However, a sentence is only void if it imposes a punishment the law does not allow. The defendant does not claim that he received a sentence that fell outside the permissible statutory range. It therefore cannot be considered void, allowing the trial court to retain jurisdictions. These limitations may appear unreasonably inflexible, but they serve important ends. A trial court authority to vacate or modify a judgment ends with the expiration of the term of the court in which the judgment was entered. This is so because courts must give stability to their decisions by maintaining the finality of judgments. Courts cannot, at their pleasure, reopen questions which have been concluded by solemn adjudication. There must be some point at which stare decisis applies. And that point, with respect to a judgment upon the merits, unexpected to, is the conclusion of the term at which it is rendered. The court lacks jurisdiction to grant the requested relief. The motion is dismissed.
Yeah. So stare decisis means precedent, right? Mm-hmm. Like when they overturned Dobbs, they were spitting in the face of the concept of stare decisis.
Sure.
So that's kind of where that comes from. But yeah, he's so funny. He's like, dude, you're wrong 9 ways. Here, first of all, you're too late. This is a pretrial remedy. You have to do it in the same term as the court that the judgment occurred. Number 2, it isn't even a judgment because you took the first offender plea deal. So there's no judgment. So I don't have jurisdiction. And even if I did, you're still dumb.
I would have just rather, if I'm Cheese, I would have just rather him just said no. Right. I don't even, right. This whole explanation makes me feel like I'm an idiot, and which he is, obviously. But my goodness, shout out to the judge here. I award you
no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. It's one of those.
My goodness, man. He read him for filth. He told him, my goodness.
He certainly did. All right, thanks for listening to the Cheese Block. We're going to move on now. We're going to head to Manhattan, but we have to take another quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We have more new patrons to thank. We can't do this show without our patrons, and that's why I'm looking forward to giving everybody good hugs tonight when we meet our patrons at the gala. Kevin McKinney, Ian James, and Susan Koppel, thank you. A million times thank you. Again, we can't do this without you. We have production costs, and, I like to give everybody 401ks and healthcare and pay everybody super great wages. So thank you for helping us do that. We really appreciate it. We've got some really great producers and editors that we work with here.
They are the best.
At MSW Media. Our editing team, all women, which I love.
Woo! Love it.
And we've got just an incredible team. All right, let's head to Manhattan, my friend. As we know, last month, Alvin Bragg asked Judge Merchan to hold off on sentencing Trump for the 34 felony count conviction and hold off on ruling on the immunity of some of the evidence, a few pieces of evidence, because Trump wrote a letter to the court asking the court to just nuke the entire conviction, right? And Alvin Bragg said, hang back on the other stuff for a minute because I need to step in and roll up my sleeves and shut this down. So because he wants to duke it out over whether the verdict should be vacated, which, again, Trump's lawyers asked for in a surprise letter to the court that was revealed a couple of days later. We didn't know about it. Bragg indicated he opposes such a motion because, like I said earlier in the show, even though he understands that a sitting president can't be burdened by prosecution, we also can't just nullify the work of a jury, the sacred work of a jury. This is justice. This is sacred shit. So this week, we got Bragg's 82-page brief on the matter, 82 pages of why you can't dismiss and throw out these 34 felony counts. And Kyle Cheney writes about it for Politico. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg says Donald Trump's imminent return to the presidency is no reason to throw out the 34-count conviction that jurors delivered in the hush money case earlier this year. I like to call it the election interference case. Hush money was involved.
Hush money was involved.
It was. Bragg conceded in a court filing that Trump cannot be sentenced while he's president, but he said Justice Juan Merchan has a variety of options to put the case on hold during Trump's second term and then issue a sentence after he leaves office in January of 2029. I don't think the court's going to let this happen because at least the Department of Justice, I should say, recognizes that you can't hold something over the president's head. That's just the same. It's like, it's kind of the same thing. But no one's ever ruled on this before. This is the first time anyone's been arguing this to a judge. So it'll be interesting to see what the judge says.
Can we also acknowledge real quick that you just said January 2029? Oh my gosh, that's so long. God, buckle up, everybody. Tune in with us. Clean up 1 hour 45. We will get you through these long 4 years together.
This podcast was supposed to kind of wind down, and now it's like,
people have been asking, is it going to be clean up 1 hour 47? I mean, my goodness, it wasn't supposed to be, but here we are. Ugh. The article continues, Bragg's suggestion to keep the case on ice rather than tossing out the conviction, as Trump is requesting, doubles down on a proposal that the prosecutor first floated in a letter to the judge last month. Trump was found guilty in May of 34 felonies for falsifying business records related to a hush money scheme that covered up a potential sex scandal in the final days of the 2016 presidential campaign. The maximum sentence is 4 years in prison. Trump's sentencing hearing has been repeatedly delayed, and now that he has won the 2024 election, Trump says any further proceedings would interfere with his presidential duties. I mean, I've always said, even from the jump, that Trump ran for office to avoid accountability, and that's exactly what he has appeared to be doing right here.
Mm-hmm.
Bragg's team urged Merchan to reject that extreme measure, pointing to the public's interest in preserving jury verdicts. Quote, even after the inauguration, defendants' temporary immunity as the sitting president will still not justify the extreme remedy of discarding the jury's unanimous guilty verdict and wiping out the already completed phases of this criminal proceeding. Prosecutors wrote in an 81-page legal brief made by the public Tuesday, dismissing an indictment after a trial and guilty verdict because the defendant later wins an election would undermine the public's perception of fairness in the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
I think that Bragg is just basically saying what we did. He ran. You can't escape accountability by being elected to office.
Right. Otherwise, we'd all just run and we'd wipe our records clean.
Ain't that what you do? You get in trouble. Hey, I'm running for office. Right? The precedent has been set.
Yeah, somebody tweeted out that guy who shot the United Healthcare CEO should just run for
president.
This article here continues from Cheney. Nevertheless, there is a broad consensus among constitutional scholars that a state's criminal prosecution of a president cannot continue while he's in office. Bragg's team agrees with that principle, but stopped short of saying Trump's sentencing can't go forward before Trump is sworn in next month. The sentencing was originally set for November 26th, but was put off by the judge after Trump prevailed at the polls. The prosecutors argued that Merchan can use various mechanisms to preserve the guilty verdict while taking steps to shield Trump from consequences that could be seen as hindering his ability to focus on his presidential duties. The options include simply suspending the case until Trump's term is over. Merchan could also announce in advance that he won't sentence Donald Trump to any jail time and won't consider Trump's conduct as president when determining future sentencing. A declaration, prosecutors said, that would dramatically reduce concerns about whether the looming sentence should impede Trump's presidency. So, yeah, the sentencing, I guess, is hanging over his head, but we're not going to put you in jail.
You know what? That stands out to me. the judge will not consider Trump's conduct as president when determining a future sentence. That's putting that in there is already stating that we know Trump is going to F up during this presidency. This presidency. Yeah. So we're saying, hey, we know that you're going to mess up. We're just not going to consider it while you're doing that. My goodness.
That's pretty bold.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm. The article goes on, or in a peculiar suggestion from prosecutors, Merchan could look to a procedure known as abatement. That is used when a defendant dies after a verdict, but while other aspects of the case remain pending. In such circumstances, the state abates the prosecution, a process that preserves the conviction but ends further proceedings.
That sounds like a more likely scenario to me, right? Like, I don't think Merchan's going to be like, we can't hold the sentencing over his head. I'm not going to announce what the sentence is going to be. And so I think we need to take sentencing off the table, and we'll just hold this in abatement. So the jury verdict stands. You are a convicted felon on 34 counts, but we're done. Yeah.
Much of Bragg's submission to the court consists of descriptions of how Trump sought to silence porn star Stormy Daniels just before the 2016 election by having attorney Michael Cohen pay her off with $130,000 and of Trump's subsequent efforts to obscure the reimbursement. Another section and a collection of exhibits are devoted to recounting Trump's repeated rhetorical attacks on judges, prosecutors, and witnesses, a pattern of behavior that prosecutors called Trump's exhaustively documented history of disrespect for the judicial process. This isn't new.
No.
This isn't new.
I mean, he's got, 76 gag orders from 28 judges and 19 juries. No, the dude's got, I think, 3 gag orders on him right now.
It's insane.
Insane. Yeah, he's almost as bad at disrespecting the rule of law as Rudy Giuliani, who we're going to talk about in the next segment.
Good old Rudy.
But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Because I feel like the judge also still has to rule on immunity, because there were 3 or 4 pieces of evidence that could be considered immune official acts, right? Now, Alvin Bragg argued that even if we didn't use those 3 pieces of evidence, we still would have gotten a guilty verdict. But those 3 pieces of evidence were used to get the guilty verdict. And nobody's arguing that these should be vacated, at least not yet, because they argued before that this whole case should be thrown out. Trump did on the basis of those little 3 pieces of evidence. But the judge hasn't ruled on that yet. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways the judge could go here. The judge could say, well, I was going to throw this whole case out already because of that immune official acts evidence.
Yeah.
But I don't honestly think that there's a rule that allows a judge to not throw out the whole case based on bad evidence if the evidence wouldn't have made that much of a difference.
Yeah.
So I think that that the verdict would have stayed, had Trump lost, and that he would have been sentenced. So I just think that they're going to pull that sentencing off the board. Maybe they'll put it in abatement, like you said, if somebody dies, they can't be sentenced, right? But we got to preserve this count. But to compare the act of winning the presidency to dying, meaning that's how you get away with anything, right?
Yeah,
is pretty stunning.
It is. It definitely is. And I see it going that last option right there, the abatement, because like you said, can you have it held over your head while you're president, knowing that you're about to get in trouble, but you got to wait for 4 years? I mean, shoot, think about it. I mean, how long do people sit on death row? People sit on death row for 10 years and they'd be like, wait, man, that was 10 years ago. Are you still going to kill me for this? Nah, Donald Trump, Donald Trump wants it all thrown in. And I think another danger of that is the court law and the precedent that has already been set. That gets thrown out too. So they can no longer say there's a 34 or a felon in the White House. That wouldn't be
right.
That wouldn't
and
be.
Kyle Cheney says, it's Alvin Bragg put in his filing, you're gonna start a whole new industry where criminals run for president.
Yeah,
because it'll get them off the hook if you toss this out.
Because it's shown that it will. So I think it's important to preserve. Now, yes, the jury's work and the showing that the the justice system works sometimes, I guess, even at a snail's pace. But we have to be able to preserve the work of the jury. You can't just go invalidate. It has to be. So you can't just go and invalidate them in their work. We're thankful for what they've done, not just because they found them guilty, just because it's your civic duty. And we appreciate people standing up and doing their civic duties. So I think it's important to preserve this case and all the precedents that have been set. Because like I said, who knows what's going to happen in the future when we have another felon running for president.
Yep. And, we got to respect what juror number 2 did up there. Juror number 2, who said that when asked where he gets his news, he said he follows Mueller, she wrote on Twitter. So. And that was funny because the folks over at Lawfare were like, we've got our first Mueller, she wrote mention in the jury from the jury box.
Shout out to Mueller, she wrote.
Big up, juror number 2, big ups. I was like, DM me, man. I won't tell anybody who you are.
Or come to the meet and greet.
Right. Just be like, just wear a shirt that says 2
number
on
2.
it, and
We'll know who you are. We won't say a word. Unspoken bond right there,
Totally. All right. But yeah, speaking of Rudy, we got a message for him, but we have to take a quick break. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We have our last group of new patrons to thank, including Brian Epstein, Marlene Fire DeJoy Riley. I like that.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
One.
Did you see DeJoy? Speaking of that, did you see what he was before a congressional testimony or congressional hearing, and he was covering his ears when the lawmaker was talking, and he said, "I'm not listening to you."
Yeah. Like, la, 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 I'm not listening. Mm-hmm. Yeah, finally, that's our Postmaster General.
That's our Postmaster General. And finally, I thought this was supposed to get better. Hang in there.
Sorry, man. Yeah. We did everything. We did everything we could think of.
Hang in there, my friend. Hang in there. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be right here with you through it. So, yes. All right, let's stay in Manhattan.
All right.
With this story from the Hill. The New York Attorney General's office said Tuesday it will not drop its multi-million-dollar civil fraud case against President-elect Trump despite his request.
I love me some Tish James. I really, really do.
I am here for that. In a world of Ken Cheseboros, be Leticia James. I am here for that. Deputy Solicitor General Judith Vale wrote in a letter to Trump attorney John Sauer that his call for New York Attorney General Leticia James to toss the case presented no basis for the office to do so. The ordinary burdens of civil litigation do not impede the president's official duties in a way that violates the U.S. Constitution, Vale wrote. The Deputy Attorney General noted the state's mid-level appeals court had already heard Trump's challenge of the judgment and is weighing the matter, suggesting his official duties would not be impeded by waiting for that outcome or any further appeals in the matter. Sauer, an appellate attorney who is also Trump's pick for U.S. Solicitor General, of course he is, wrote in a letter to James last month that special counsel Jack Smith dismissed both of his criminal prosecutions against Trump following his White House win. And in New York, a judge is weighing whether to throw out the president-elect's hush money conviction. Big difference. We talking civil, we talking criminal. It's apples and oranges, my friend. But Vale said, since James's case against Trump is a civil case, not a criminal one, the president-elect's other legal troubles are irrelevant here. I like that. I like they are irrelevant. Today, the president-elect Trump organization and top executives, including his sons, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, owe more than $497 million with interest, which has continued to accrue while they appeal. Unbelievable.
Yeah, go Tish James. She's like, nope, not getting rid of it. All right, it just wouldn't be a show without Rudy Giuliani doing something stupid. When we last left the disbarred former mayor, he had asked for more time to respond to the contempt filing from Ruby Freeman and Shea Moss because he keeps defaming them. He says he needed more time because he just simply can't get a lawyer. All his lawyers left him. Now, Judge Howell denied that without prejudice, but because he failed to sign the filing, remember? Like he just screwed it up. So she denied it without prejudice. He filed it again, saying all the same BS. Like, I can't find a lawyer. I talked to 4 lawyers and they all think Judge Howell is so biased that they can't possibly be my lawyer because they would lose. That's not what lawyers do, by the way. I mean, it's great when you win, but you get paid like $700 an hour to just be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Win or lose.
Just exist as in a lawyer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, win or lose, you still get paid. I mean, unless you're disbarred.
Then you got a whole different problem.
Yeah. He also was complaining that he can't access Pacer. He needs more time. Dude, I can access Pacer. I get all my court filings off of Pacer. You are the former fucking U.S. attorney for New York in the Southern District and the former mayor and the former president's former attorney, and you can't get on Pacer?
Hey, you know what? If I'm Shay Moss or Ruby, I'm like, you know what? He can't get on Pacer because I want his computer. Give me his computer.
Yeah. You do actually have to pay for Pacer.
Exactly.
You pay per page. So
yep.
Maybe that's what he means. Like, my bank accounts are frozen, so I can't use Pacer. That's sad.
That's sad.
Here's what Judge Barrow Howell says, though, after his refiled from his mistake. Minute order, paperless, granting defendant's motion to enlarge the time to oppose the plaintiff's motion for civil contempt. That's how Rudy wrote it. Motion to enlarge the time. Ordering that by January 2nd, 2025, Rudy shall file any opposition to the plaintiff's motion for civil contempt. So he had till December 2nd. Now he's got until January 2nd. And by January 7th, 2025, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss can file a reply, continuing the hearing on plaintiff's motion for civil contempt until January 10th. So we're going to have that hearing on January 10th now at 1:30 p.m. in light of the defendant's representations that he will comply with the injunctive order, at least until the matter is heard, and that he needs time in order to, quote, find an attorney given the potential scope and severity of, quote, the arsenal of sanctions available to a court for civil contempt, including compensatory and coercive fines, as well as imprisonment, unquote. U.S. v. Latney's funeral home, signed, me. Then she goes on to say, cautioning Rudy Giuliani that any further extension requests so he can obtain counsel will be viewed with continuing skepticism. So you're full of shit.
I'm sick of your shit. I am sick of this shit. This is it.
You are full of it. Since the defendant is apparently able to obtain the assistance of counsel in this matter, clerk's office from Adam Katz identifying himself as attorney for Mr. Giuliani of some of his New York State matters, and has in fact had counsel represent him in this matter. See 14 joint stipulation and consent to entry of final judgment. Quote, undersigned counsel of record in this action represent that they are authorized to execute and enter this joint stipulation and consent to entry of final judgment on behalf of the respective parties whom they represent. Undersigned counsel have full authority to bind respective parties whom they represent in the adversary proceeding. Quote, defendant represents that he has had an opportunity to consult with counsel, has obtained the advice of counsel, and has agreed to all the terms of the joint stipulation and consent of entry of final judgment freely and voluntarily. So, bro, you've had lawyers. You accepted this judgment. You did it freely and voluntarily. So STFU. She then says, executed on defendant's behalf. She shows him his lawyers' names and signatures. Gary C. Fishoff, Esquire, Berger, Fishoff, Schumer, Wexler, and Goodman, LLP, representing the defendant, signed by Judge Barrow Howell on December 9th, 2024.
I just love that part. She just named, I can't get counsel, Rudy's argument, I can't get counsel. But in the order, the judge goes on to name all of his
the
counsels.
Attorney and the firm. Right.
I am here for that, and I am here for that. But that's Rudy for you, man. Like,
yeah, she didn't address any of the, his. I can't find lawyers because she's so biased. You know that she didn't even address that.
That's a good Rudy impersonation right there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, she's just like, I'm no more enlarging time frames because you can't find a lawyer. I'm very skeptical of this because here's a document with signed by a lawyer representing you. So no.
And that was funny too. Enlarging the time.
Enlarge. Motion to enlarge.
Not extend, enlarge it.
Was he drunk? Was he just drunk when he wrote it? Like,
He
even
has to be.
even somebody on Blue Sky was like, this could use a proofreading. Like, I don't know what you're doing.
Oh my God, man. But it could have happened to a better person.
Yeah. And, we'll see what happens, because I think it was last Friday, all that stuff was supposed to be driven over to a storage facility. Like, and this is his other contempt problem, right? The fact that he hasn't handed over his stuff to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. This isn't about the continuing defamation. But, I'm interested to see if he actually did that. And maybe, let me actually check.
To see if that was done yet.
See if they filed anything. No, looks like we've got the latest news. So
Gotcha.
Nothing breaking here.
Nothing yet. Stay tuned.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that's our show. Again, thanks to all our new patrons. If you want to sign up, please do. We totally could use your help. Patreon.com/aisle45pod, AISLE45POD. We're just about an hour away from going down to our DC Gala to meet some of our patrons from both the Daily Beans and Cleanup on Aisle 45. And when I have these galas, we invite all the patrons for the Beans and Cleanup. And I know that there's a lot of crossover there too. So it's the Venn diagram is almost a circle. So
you love
cool.
to see it.
You do. And I look forward to meeting all y'all. And Harry, we'll schedule a Q&A Zoom call soon.
That's going to be fun. I'm excited about that one.
We can jump on and say hi to everybody, answer questions, have some cocktails and mocktails.
That's
a little Q&A happy hour.
Absolutely.
But again, that's patreon.com/aisle45pod. And we hope that you'll join the little family here, because the show is, we were almost done. And now it's going to go for another 4
like
years.
you just said, January 2029. My goodness. I do want to say real quick before we sign off here, I want to ask our listeners to send me their kind thoughts and kind words. On Thursday, I will be, I have some meetings scheduled. I'll be meeting with some of our senators, expressing my concerns about some of the nominations that have been presented by President-elect Donald Trump. A lot of these members, specifically Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, we got to look at their views, their statements about January 6th, their thoughts before and after January 6th, and what they thought of it. These senators that I plan on meeting with, these are Republican senators, I believe, held January 6th it was personal to them, and they voted to hold Donald Trump accountable during the impeachment hearings. And I want them to remember that. Remember on January 6th, remember what Kash Patel thinks about January 6th, and think, are you okay with that person sitting in the director positions that they will be potentially sitting in? So just remind them, and that's how I keep my fight going on this end. So y'all send me
Pam
some
Bondi
words
was
of
an
encouragement.
election denier too, right?
She absolutely was. She absolutely was. And she was a recipient of a lot of money from Donald. I don't know if it came directly from Donald Trump, but it was quid pro quo going on there.
Yeah, the Trump Foundation.
The Trump Foundation, yes.
Made a $25,000 donation to her campaign, and then poof, the criminal investigation into the Trump University went away.
So, we got to keep fighting. We got to be pushing back in any way we can. Write your senators, call them. I have the ability to go up there and actually sit down face to face with them. So I'll be doing that on Thursday. So send me some good wishes. Send me some wishes, y'all.
Well, and then we'll be able to talk about it on the bonus episode.
Yes. I can't wait to do that.
That's going to be amazing. I look forward to that. Thank you for doing that.
Yes,
if I give you some notes, will you?
No. I will, because I'm sitting here like, all right, don't mess this up. I'm gonna be fumbling. I'm gonna be mad.
I was just gonna write "fuck you" on a piece of paper and hand it to him. That's what I was gonna do.
I will so do that. Don't read this till I leave.
No. No, it's good to sit down with these folks and to get their honest feedback on what they think of these folks in connection to January 6th, especially. So thanks for doing that work, man.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, we'll be back in your ears this weekend for the bonus episode if you're a patron. If not, we will see you on the public episode, which is always free. And that'll be next week. So I appreciate your time, my friend. This is our third episode together. This was a good one. And we'll see everybody next time. I'm Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill, with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Cleanup on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.